believe it or not, I'm still riding with Biden.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I'm writing in Joe Biden
this
November.
I've held out for a long time, but you know that trend on TikTok where everybody is like showing their account, like their personal account and the account they have that like has some followers?
Yeah.
I am the guy behind the Biden accomplishments guy on Twitter. That was me, guys.
My vote mattered.
My primary vote mattered, and I've just been trying to mask it ever since, but I can't. I cannot stay silent while Kamala Harris and the DNC just coos this man that earned the nomination.
Joe Biden is the nominee.
Exactly. He is. There were primaries.
People voted.
People did. This has been a coup.
Look, maybe your state didn't have a primary. Maybe he just got the delegates by default. I don't care.
Exactly.
You voted.
Exactly. There were a couple
40
primaries.
years ago, you voted.
There were a couple primaries across the country. Not nearly in all 50 states. A lot of people didn't get to voice their concerns, but there were primaries.
Hey, he's the nominee, and we're not the only ones to think this. I think there's some bipartisan agreement on this issue.
We can reach across the aisle for this one.
And the guy we're reaching across the aisle to is Donald Trump himself.
Yeah.
He also agrees that Joe Biden had the nomination stolen from him, and he's turned to writing some I'll call it persuasive prose on Truth Social that I think we should read here.
I think so too.
All right, so Donald Trump says, what are the chances that crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the U.S., whose presidency was unconstitutionally stolen from him by Kamala, with a B, Barack Hussein Obama, crazy Nancy Pelosi, shifty Adam Schiff, crying Chuck Schumer, and others on the lunatic left, crashes the Democrat National Convention and tries to take back the nomination, beginning with challenging me to another debate. He feels that he feels that he made a historically tragic mistake by handing over the U.S. presidency, a coup, to the people in the world he hates the most. Now he wants it back now.
No, please come talk to me. Baby, come talk to me, baby, please.
He can't be out. He's got to come back.
No, just come on, crash the convention. Assert your dominance. Tell him who's the man, and then we can fight it out. We can.
I can't believe he's writing fanfic.
That's so good.
On the timeline. He wants Joe Biden back so badly.
Truth Social is competing with AO3 right now.
He's like Joker and Joe Biden's Batman. He's
exactly.
Like, it's not
They're
fun
meant
anymore.
for each other. It's low-key a homoerotic story.
As we said, the only two guys that can lose to each other. And now that Joe Biden honorably stepped down, gave Kamala Harris the nomination, Donald Trump's kicking and screaming.
He doesn't know what to do. That was his guy, and he's been taken from him.
Yeah.
They can't talk it out on the stage anymore. You know, I think this really does explain why Trump, ever since Joe Biden dropped out, has been so low energy.
And I feel bad for him.
I do too. I'd be depressed too.
Yeah, imagine being a guy like Donald Trump.
I mean, I am depressed.
Well, precisely, because I'm a Biden guy.
Yeah, I'm riding.
But imagine being Donald Trump, being sexist and racist your entire life.
Yeah.
And then winning the presidency, losing to a white guy, and then you're running again and you're about to lose to a black woman. It's not fair, folks.
Exactly. Come on, guys. What is democracy come to? What is the fucking what does this great country come to?
Exactly. He can't even get to face a weaker opponent of his choice.
Exactly.
That's not fair.
The West is fallen.
Oh my
God. We're
God.
letting the DNC coup us.
I'm writing in Biden. You can't stop me. Welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. On today's show, we got to talk about Tim Walz.
Yes, we do.
DEI vice presidential pick.
That's absolutely first thing I thought.
We got some more Trump news a little bit later on. And of course, we're going to head over to our geopolitical correspondent, Gage, over here.
Always.
And he's going to give us the latest on Gaza later on in the episode. But first, before we get into the show, I will remind you all, of course, to go over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod, become a patron, get early access to all of our episodes. Who knows what's going to happen between now and Election Day. And if it happens on a Monday through Wednesday, you're not going to get it on the show that comes out that week.
It happens on a Monday. You're going to get it 10 days later.
Exactly.
Do you know how much news has been happening in the span of 10 days over the last month and a half?
Yeah.
Frankly, I'd be upset.
And you non-patrons, you Wednesday weenies, got lucky with the assassination attempt and with Biden dropping out. But look, Wednesday weenies have had it too good for too long.
Yeah, we had to snap back to reality this week, folks.
And now all important news is dropping on Mondays and Tuesdays.
How it should be.
So you need to head over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod, become a patron. Otherwise, you're going to be missing out.
Exactly. And, you know, just like all things in life, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and get on over to Patreon.
Exactly.
You can do something about this.
And look, it's not charity. You know what I'm saying? You'll get early access, of course. And you also, if you get into the $5 tier and up, access to the postcard program. Postcards, I've heard through our elite network of spies, have been arriving at people's doorsteps in their mailboxes. So if you've got your postcard so far, post a picture of it, put it on your Instagram story. We'll repost it.
They're pretty cool.
I hope you like it. You got a handwritten message on there.
You did from one of us.
Yeah, might have to start putting them in woke envelopes next time, though.
Yeah, I think so.
I heard the machines mess it up a little bit.
I can't believe that. I can't believe the deep state is doing this to us.
I know they're trying to subdue our message, our grassroots message.
Exactly. The Hito sweep, they don't want it to happen.
Also, get some merch that also supports the show. Headintheoffice.com. We got some good stuff over there. So check it out.
It's really cool.
You get 15% off your Ground News subscription, as we've been saying for a couple of weeks now. Check it out. Link is in the description. Also, if you want to support the show, 5-star reviews on Apple. We got a bunch this week because we debased ourselves last week.
I think this is a trend. We have a week where we get one or no reviews every couple months. Then we get on here, get on our hands and knees and beg, and then there's just absolute litany of reviews coming the next week.
Yeah.
I think you guys are starting to like it when we beg.
Yeah, well, and I'm thinking either that or they're just undisciplined.
I think so too.
I think you guys, you get lazy, you get complacent, exactly, and you stop sending the reviews in, and then it takes an authoritarian figure like us to snap you back into shape.
Yeah, it takes the nanny state to come in and really get you going.
And the worst part is, I think you like that.
I do. And I don't. Should I be participating in this? I don't know.
I might have to opt out. I might have to see that lever and back away.
Exactly.
The first one here from Jared 2136, a delightful perspective on politics. Jared says, first and foremost, I condemn Hamas. Secondly, I condemn all political violence.
Nice.
I've been listening as a Wednesday weenie for some time now, and it is a breath of fresh air to hear Jeremy and Gage's points of view on all things politics. I'm no stranger to history or politics, as I have a bachelor's degree in political science, served 10 years in the armed forces, and now serve as a high school history teacher.
Tim Walz's burner account.
Tim Walz's burner account, and as we'll get into later, fucking leech on the system.
I'm saying, oh my God.
That's a joke you'll understand about 40 minutes from now. I love how you guys take the most cringe political things and make fun of them. You guys do a wonderful job breaking down the current political landscape and making it more palatable. Keep up the great work in giving a voice for the left and helping to hold both extremes, left or right, to account. Bravo, boys. Oh, and last thing, I vehemently condemn Hamas. Sincerely, J-phobes.
Amazing. What excellent review there. This next one, Since You Begged, by Emily Fall.
Hey, now.
Yeah, hey now, whoa now. I wouldn't call it begging, maybe.
This is just confirming our priors at this point.
Yeah, hold on a minute now. Obviously have to start with two cold hard facts. I condemn Hamas and do not condone political violence of any kind. I found this podcast earlier this year and have been working the catalog any chance I can get. As a fellow human who is getting sick of living in unprecedented times, I immediately connected with what Gage and Jeremy are trying to do here. Our world seems to be tilted on a different axis these days, and instead of droning on and on about how awful things are, these two find humor in the chaos. There may be a lot to stress about these days, but when it comes to things out of our control, what else can you do but laugh? That's what we're saying. Hito axiom right there. Congrats on your new sponsor, by the way, and remember to Pokemon go to the polls this November. Signed, a liberal girl with a conservative boyfriend. I'm feeling for you about a month ago.
Welcome back to the Hito dating advice section. Break up with them. Conservatives need to know what happens when you're conservative. I mean it.
What can we say?
If you want to maintain this parasocial relationship, there's one thing you got to do, and you just got to muster the strength.
Exactly. You got to muster the strength to do that, and then go to the Patreon, and we can write you a postcard congratulating you.
And you'll live a better life. Anyway, moving on to the next one by Zoom Zolomon. Pity review to make up for last pod. I do condemn Hamas.
Pity review. There we go again, confirming our biases.
Exactly. 10 out of 10 pod. All the cliches. Favorite straight white boys. Blah blah. Best leftists out there. Blah blah. Found them on TikTok. Blah blah. I am currently a Wednesday weenie, but plan on becoming a Sunday supremacist soon on the Patreon. Join now if you're reading this and you're able to, though.
Yes.
In all seriousness, truly grateful for the thorough, researched, and non-brain dead takes these guys have on politics. Definitely help with articulating everything I feel, but may not have the words or prior knowledge to back up my thoughts. If you want some sane political commentary with a decent amount of laughter, then check them out. I unequivocally condemn Hamas. P.S. Jeremy, we're waiting on the OF. Oh my God.
What could that mean?
What could that mean? I don't know. That could mean anything. IOF?
Who knows?
That's crazy. I'm not sure. Well, actually, that maybe that means they really condemn Hamas.
That's true. Maybe, yeah. That's in a way.
In a bad way.
In a bad way.
In a not leftist way.
Precisely. Yeah. We condemn Hamas differently.
Yeah.
We condemn Hamas with understanding and
good way.
context
The good way.
because we did not fall out of a coconut tree,
Never.
people. Oh my goodness. This last and final review, What a Couple of Dudes by Kevin Shekel. Let me just start off by saying I condemn political violence, Hamas, and most importantly, everyone who didn't leave a 5-star review last week, except me, of course.
Most importantly.
Absolutely loving the pod. Been listening for a couple weeks now, and I've enjoyed every week that I get to tune in. Best of luck, fellas. Love you, boys. And we love you too, for real.
We love you more, Kevin.
That's right.
And I'm glad you emphasized, most importantly, you condemn the people who didn't leave a 5-star review.
Yes.
Because in the order of things, it's like I condemn most people who didn't leave a review, and then Hamas, and then political violence. Like if I had to rank them, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, tier list, if you will.
Kevin did good work here. I agree.
I think so. Yeah, these are good reviews, everybody. Everyone knows 2024, it's an election year, right? You know what else is an immutable fact? Wednesday weenies always lose to the weekly news cycle.
You're always behind.
This is even more undeniable in 2024. These primary Iowa caucus happening on a Monday. Super Tuesday, that's in the name. Yeah. Wednesday weenie, again, in the name. If you want to get ahead of the news cycle, you need to head on over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod.
Listen, if you want the news when it happens rather than after it happens, consider becoming a patron. It's a good way to support the show, and it's a good way to stay up to date on everything this year as we deal with this tumultuous election season together.
Wear that Head in the Office patron badge on your sleeve. You can run around always. I'm a patron in the office. I get the news when it happens.
Back to the episode. It's time to talk about DEI.
Yeah, it is. It's just this institution that's seeped its way into every just American organization and is just corroding it from the inside.
Meritocracy doesn't exist anymore.
I mean, we've been talking about it for a couple weeks now, but like these people are getting into positions of power not based on their merits,
exactly,
not based on their record. If any, the record comes second, but what comes first? The color of their skin, the fucking thingy in their pants.
Yep.
And I don't know what other liberal bullshit they want to push.
Age, probably.
Exactly. And this week, it's been on full display, folks.
Exactly. If I get on a plane and I see it's a stereotypical looking white dude from the Midwest, I don't feel safe anymore.
No, neither do I.
And it's not my fault I feel that way.
Exactly.
I don't want to have to feel that way.
I don't, but that's just, look at the stats, people.
Yeah, of course, we're talking about DEI pick for Vice President Tim Walz. Last week, our Supreme Leader, Nancy Pelosi, blessed us with another banger political calculation because Tim Walz was selected for Kamala Harris's vice president on her campaign. And I just got to say, once again, I sincerely apologize to Nancy Pelosi.
I do.
I didn't understand your game. Trading stocks is good, actually.
Exactly. Week after week, I've just been humbled and proven wrong by her game.
That's
frankly.
Right. Yeah. We heard that behind the scenes she was rooting for Tim Walz. She's pulling for Tim Walz, and lo and behold,
look where we are.
What she commanded, it happened.
The most progressive pick. Nancy Pelosi was pulling for it. Like I don't know what kind of upside down world we're living in.
And she was on that wave even before us. I'm starting to think she's a sleeper cell.
It's crazy. I'm pretty sure after Netanyahu's address to Congress, she also tweeted something out like, "Oh yes, all this talk of hostages. Hopefully, we can actually implement a ceasefire. Hopefully, negotiations for a ceasefire can continue in good faith to actually bring them home." Like Nancy, Nancy?
I wonder what made her like lock in.
I don't know.
So hard because I've never seen her act like this.
Maybe something got to her. Maybe she fell asleep one night at her old age. She's like 80 something.
Yeah,
right?
she's like
maybe
Biden's
she went
age.
to bed one night and she realized like I don't have that much time left. Maybe I need to lock in and do something good.
Yeah, she like I mean she's always been like a very calculated political actor. Like she's not dumb, you know what I mean? But I've never seen her act this progressive and this precise.
And if anything,
she's made it work.
That only further like vindicates me in my positions that progressive politics are popular and that's the way to move forward within the party. Especially if Nancy Pelosi, she has a reputation for being the best fundraiser in the party. She's
exactly.
So fucking good, so calculated in everything she does. If she's going progressive, I don't know, guys. Maybe we actually have a foothold this election.
Something's happening. So last week on Tuesday, we got the announcement, and then Walz later made his first appearance as the official pick at a rally sometime in the evening in Pennsylvania. He and Harris gave speeches that highlighted Walz's profile and various accomplishments throughout his life. They also laid out a couple of agenda items, but we still don't have a full policy rollout. I've heard that's coming this week, that we're going to get like actual policy details, like a real platform. I would have thought they would have done that first. But I get, it's been a compressed presidential campaign timeline because like 3 weeks ago we still had Biden.
I was thinking they were just going to wait for the convention, just unveil everything at the convention and maybe spoon feed a little like bits and pieces of it leading up till then.
Yeah.
I was thinking next episode would probably be the platform predictions.
Yeah. And I mean, they do, when they hold rallies, they do sort of touch on policy. Because you can't really hold a rally without, saying we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But we don't have a full policy platform just yet. And it seems like they're going to start maybe drip feeding that next week because the DNC is a week from Monday, I believe.
Yeah, it's August 19th.
Tomorrow's the 12th for us.
Starts, and then so we'll go on that week.
It's next week. But we're going to be getting some policy soon, which hopefully is exciting. Kind of holding my breath for the Israel-Gaza policy position, the stated policy position.
As we'll get into, but absolutely holding my breath for that one. I wonder if the Supreme Court reform is going to be something that she absolutely like campaigns on, if that's like a major policy issue. Because I feel like Joe Biden unveiling it, like what, 2 weeks ago?
Whenever that fucker
when he
was.
did say he finally wanted to reform the court with that like list of things he wanted to do, I feel like that was just kind of to test the waters to see if they could attach that to the Harris campaign. And maybe they'll use Joe Biden to do a couple things like that going forward, have him unveil a policy she's not really connected to it, see if it's popular, and then she can adopt it. Because as Kamala has proven throughout her political career that we've talked about, she will absolutely shift her political positions wherever the wind blows.
That's valid. Yeah, and the Supreme Court one's pretty easy because that is very popular. Nobody likes the Supreme Court right now. It gets harder on Gaza, especially because she can't really get out in front of Joe Biden and say, like, this is what I want to do. Because if she does that, then the Biden team in the White House has to, like, deal with that somehow.
Yeah, especially
because they don't want it to look like there's any disconnect or discord between the vice president and the president currently.
Especially when John Kirby is still going out there at every press conference, like we can't say anything that would upset the delicate process of ceasefire negotiation.
Israel's strongest defender.
Exactly.
It's awful. So we'll get into the exact lines of attack on Walz in a moment, but I do want to give a little background on him because I feel like most people probably don't know who he is. I was thinking this week that like, I know Tim Walz because I follow politics so closely, but I would bet that like basically everybody doesn't know him unless they live in Minnesota. So we're going to run through a brief bio on this guy. So he's currently Minnesota's two-term governor. He won re-election in 2022 by pretty wide margins, initially won in 2018. Before politics, he was born in Nebraska, and he served with the National Guard for 24 years. He retired before he would have been deployed to Iraq, which we will get to because there's some attacks around that. He then became a high school social studies teacher and coached football. Apparently, he joined the coaching staff when they were like 0-27. And then they flipped it around in like 3 years and won a state championship or whatever. So
crazy.
Like, go crazy.
Crazy.
He's Dan Campbell.
He is, absolutely. He's taking a broken program and he's flipping it around.
Exactly. That's what we need. After his students encouraged him to run, he won a House seat in 2006 and then eventually ran for governor of Minnesota again in 2018. As governor, the state has implemented free school lunch for all students, eliminated abortion restrictions, protected LGBTQ plus rights, legalized marijuana, implemented a bunch of protections for unions. He also marched with the UAW and a bunch of other stuff, of course. Now, naturally, he couldn't do any of this without the slim majorities he has in the state legislature, and even some of those accomplishments might have just been what the legislators themselves were pushing for. Either way, he was there for it. He signed it into law. All pretty good stuff.
All pretty good.
Very popular,
also,
too.
while he was a football coach, while he was turning the football program around, he was the like faculty sponsor of their school's chapter of the Gay Straight Alliance, too. So he's just been a good guy.
Yeah.
Just genuinely good guy.
Yeah, and like, this might turn off some libs, but I think when he was in the House, he received like a pretty high scorecard from the NRA. Because he's
really?
apparently been either pro-gun or just not, hasn't really tried to push for restrictions or whatever.
Yeah.
Because he's so familiar with guns from being in the National Guard and growing up around them and stuff like that. He's also, of course, has that line about how Republicans don't like him because he can shoot better than they can.
Gas.
He would
That's
always
so
like.
Sick.
He would always beat like the other Republican congressmen anytime they would have their shooting competitions.
Yeah, because they were just in it for the aesthetics. They didn't actually give a shit about guns.
So do what you will with that. But I think most importantly, he seems like a folksy old white guy, which. DEI pick, but is what the ticket needed.
Yeah, no, he is Midwestern.
Yes.
Like, you could take that is the one thing you can never take away from this guy. Is he's prototypical Midwestern man.
Yep, he's got videos of him with his family at the fair, local fair. He's going to. He's got photos of him like ice fishing and doing any other variety of like very Midwestern.
Think any
thing.
Rugged activity. He's photographed doing it.
Hunting with his dog.
Genuine.
Yeah,
exactly. It's not like when Tucker Carlson is in a completely pristine wood shop with not a speck of sawdust around him in a flannel. He's in there building cabinets.
Exactly. Yeah, he's what Republicans try to look like. They
literally.
Are. Yeah, he's that guy. Walz, however, was not the top choice for Harris's VP among Republicans, as it seems a lot of them wanted Josh Shapiro.
And
governor
like
of Pennsylvania.
That should be the thing that tells us that, Harris made the right decision in not picking that guy.
Yes, absolutely. There were a lot of conservatives that were accusing, on the day that he was announced, which was Tuesday of last week, a lot of conservatives were saying Democrats were anti-Semitic for not choosing Josh Shapiro as vice president. In fact, one person on Twitter hit us with, quote, "No Jews allowed at the top of the Democratic Party."
Pot kettle. Absolute pot kettle moment
which
right
is like,
there.
of course, I don't think any Jewish person has ran for president within the Republican Party.
Yeah.
If they haven't won the nomination.
Are there even any Jewish congressmen?
And in the Republican Party, maybe like one or two, like in the House, maybe. But most of them are Democrats. Most Jewish people in the country vote for Democrats.
Yeah.
Chuck Schumer himself is Jewish, and he's the head Democrat in the Senate. Like, come on.
I don't think a Jewish person could be on like a Republican presidential ticket. Like, it genuinely could not be on a Republican
I don't think it would work
ticket.
out.
The Christian vote would be so upset. Like,
yeah. So I thought that was a funny little news story or a little kind of line of discourse that we got, especially like I saw Ben Shapiro talking about this a lot.
Ben Shapiro was hammering it.
He was going crazy on it, which again reaffirms in my mind that Josh Shapiro was the wrong choice. If they really wanted him, they probably had something on him that was already cooked up.
Yeah.
Like they were probably prepared to cook Josh Shapiro.
I'm sure they were going to cook him on the shit about covering up the murder, the stabbed in the back. It's stabbed in your back, but it was a suicide thing, whatever that he
Which
was.
Like fair as hell.
Absolutely fair as hell. They were probably going to cook him on that. Notably, it would be the things that aren't actually substantive, like the fact that the teachers' unions don't fuck with him. No union actually fucks with him. And he's got bad opinions on Gaza.
Yeah. And like, I think you could, this isn't even an I think statement. You cannot choose somebody without the reason for you not choosing them being their identity.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
Like the Harris campaign clearly didn't choose him because he would have alienated a portion of the base, not because he's Jewish, but because he's got bad opinions on Gaza and protesters, and because of all the things you listed with the unions and stuff.
The same thing would have happened with Mark Kelly.
Yes.
The same people you alienate with Shapiro, you also alienate with Mark Kelly. That dude is a Zionist. Like,
yeah, and to me, the Tim Walz pick from the Harris campaign seems to suggest that she is taking the more progressive side of the party seriously. You know what I mean? Like she could have picked Josh Shapiro or Mark Kelly, a choice that would have made a lot of people on the progressive left very angry, but she didn't do that.
Yeah.
And there would have been ways to legitimize picking either of those guys, but again, she didn't do it. She picked the most progressive option, or her team and her picked the most progressive option, which to me suggests that they are serious about trying to court people that are further to the left.
Liberals were geeked about astronaut on the ticket.
Yeah.
They were absolutely geeked just about the optics of Mark Kelly being there, but I think Tim Walz fulfills almost all the optics that Mark Kelly does too. Mark Kelly looks like a more blue collar guy, you know what I mean? He looks like a rough guy. Tim Walz kind of is.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's best of both worlds.
Tim Walz, yeah, you'll find an old story of Tim Walz and it's just like a video of him fixing his car.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I saw a video and he's like, tip of the day, if you go and look at this blown like headlight on this Ford, if you go over here, it's only like $7 to fix it. You could do that real quick and get yourself back on the road. Like he's a good guy. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. And look, there are issues you could take at Tim Walz, certainly from a leftist perspective. There's absolutely issues you can take with Kamala Harris. I'm not saying either of them are perfect for the purposes of our politics, but it seems to me that they are trying to thread the needle here, and this pick is at least an attempt to placate or court left-wing voters.
Yeah.
People that were maybe tuned out because of stances on Gaza and maybe failures on economic policies and stuff like that. It's a good sign, I think.
Yeah, and it's also like even going back to the Ben Shapiro's narrative that the left is so anti-Semitic, or there are no Jews at the top of the Democratic Party. Chuck Schumer, there's many of them.
Yes.
Literally many that are within the party, in top positions within the party. But not just that. If she does go with the Shapiro pick, there is no way to like, there's no winning with that on the anti-Semitic front, because Democrats are very slightly, minorly better on the Gaza genocide than conservatives
and that's recent.
are.
That's
recent.
That's this conflict that happened.
Exactly. That's very recent. They are minorly better with that. Wicked anti-Semitism accusations levied at the entire party. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If she picks Shapiro, Ben Shapiro comes on the scene and he just says, oh, she only picked Shapiro so that she can tokenize him.
Absolutely.
And use his position as the VP to insulate themselves from whatever criticisms of Israel. And then if you don't pick him, which she didn't, they go out and say, no, she's just anti-Semitic. Look at how much they hate them.
Exactly. Like, there's no winning there.
Exactly. It's kind of the same thing with Mark Kelly. It's like you can't out conservatives on those two issues. You can't out conservatives on immigration, and you can't do it with Gaza. Like you just can't. And I'm glad they made the right choice.
Yeah, and it seems like Kamala Harris knows that. And when it comes to people like Ben Shapiro or other conservatives that were yapping about how the Dems are anti-Semitic, I have a feeling that they had already produced content about Josh Shapiro,
they invested
and they
money.
were angry they didn't get to post it because Ben Shapiro, when Kamala Harris became the presumptive nominee as soon as Biden dropped out, almost immediately dropped like a quote-unquote expose about Kamala Harris. It was like a 30-minute long video dedicated to exposing Kamala Harris. I didn't watch all of it, but like, you know, it's Ben Shapiro, it's the Daily
And
Wire.
it's probably just shit.
I have a feeling that they had a lot of content ready for Josh Shapiro, and they're mad they can't use it.
Well,
now.
I'm sure they had content ready for Josh Shapiro, Andy Bashar, Mark Kelly, even fucking North Carolina governor. Nobody thought it was going to be Tim Walz until the week of the decision.
Yes.
We talked about it last week. It wasn't even on our radar. Like, oh, maybe it's this guy. Probably fucking not. And then all of a sudden, Nancy Pelosi comes through the bag and gets him in there. You know what I mean? But like, because when the announcement came out, Ben Shapiro dropped a sweaty video on Twitter of him just talking to the camera.
I think he was like legitimately upset.
They had nothing, and that's good. Oh my God.
Now let's get into some of the common lines of attack that we will see on, or that we have seen on Tim Walz, because there's a lot of silly stuff in here. And I think we got to cover it because Tim Walz, look, vice presidential pick is solely vibes based.
Absolutely.
All they bring to the ticket is vibes. The attacks really don't matter, but they are spending a lot of time attacking Tim Walz. And as long as they're doing that, I think we should talk about it as purveyors of narratives.
Oh, absolutely. We have to. And it's also the fact that like most of these negatives just aren't going to stick.
Yeah.
It's the VP.
Now, first off, of course, he's been labeled as a communist. We've seen there was a fake image going around, like a Fox News image that was like Tim Walz communist agenda. That one wasn't real, but he has been called a communist by Jesse Waters, I think.
Yeah, it makes
which
sense.
is cool.
People have been taking the what some people call socialism is other people's neighborliness as literally Tim Walz is a socialist out and about. Like, come on, people.
When it's like clearly the meaning there is like you're calling these policies socialism. I'm just calling it kindness.
And I'm sure that's in response to like free school lunch.
Yeah, or building bridges.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. J.D. Vance and others have claimed that Tim Walz abandoned his unit in the National Guard before they were deployed to Iraq. Vance said specifically, quote, when Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the army. It wasn't an army, it was the National Guard, by the way, and allowed his unit to go without him, a fact that he's been criticized for aggressively by a lot of people he served with. However, Tim Walz filed for retirement from the National Guard a month before deployment was ever mentioned as a possibility.
Yeah, a month before any of the orders came through that, hey, you might be going to Iraq.
So that's just nonsensical to begin with. On top of that, even if we say that Tim Walz found out he might be deployed to Iraq and then quit, that's based as fuck.
That's actually cool. Yeah, that's really cool. Especially because
we know going to Iraq was a bad idea.
Yeah, and then when he went into the House, he was very anti-war.
Yeah.
I think he was like instrumental in getting Obama to not invade Syria or something like that. Whatever was going on then, and he's always been like opposed to these things. That's cool. It's not cool when you're Trump because I want to call him a draft dodger because his base actually cares about these things. But like, yeah, I'm generally pro avoiding war.
Yeah. Well, and J.D. Vance is trying to position this as like Tim Walz has stolen valor and I actually went to Iraq, therefore I actually care about this country. First of all, J.D. Vance was a military journalist. He never actually saw combat. And Tim Walz served 24 years. 20 years is the retirement time. You serve 20 years and you're eligible for retirement. He served 24 and then retired. He announced his retirement before he would have actually known that he might have been deployed to Iraq. And again, even if he was about to be deployed and he retired, we can't call him bad for that because George Bush was wrong to send troops to Iraq.
Exactly, and he still did 24 years.
Yeah.
He still did. I think it's cool if you do 24 years and you're like, yeah, actually, I don't want to go fight people anymore.
He started serving when he was 17.
Yeah.
Like, out of high school. Like, what are we talking? He is like the prototypical veteran that we're supposed to support. The veteran that Republicans always say they support.
Absolutely asinine.
It's silly. Also, I do want to note that it's simply not true that, quote, a lot of people that Tim Walz served with criticized him for this move. It was like 2 people that wrote op-eds about him when he was running for governor, I believe. And like at the end of the day, when it comes to Iraq, blame George Bush, not Tim Walz.
Yeah, we need to just take op-eds away from people.
Yeah, no more free press.
No more free press.
It's ridiculous. Some conservatives have taken to calling Tim Walz Tampon Tim as they try to muster some attacks against him. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I've seen this.
First off, not beating the weird allegations.
I'm saying that's just weird.
Yeah, you're not beating the weird allegations.
There's a lot of conservative men out there that can hardly even utter the word tampon without cringing. Like, this won't stick.
Yeah.
This won't stick, and it's weird.
Second off, the context here is that Tim Walz signed a bill in his state as governor putting free menstrual products in all public school bathrooms, including boys' bathrooms, because, of course, trans folks exist. Therefore, quote-unquote, Tampon Tim was born. But the issue here is that, one, I don't think anybody cares.
Yeah.
This seems like a nothing burger. Like, who is this name really going to stick? I don't think so. And second, it's objectively good policy because if you are a man and you've ever lived with people who have periods, you've used bathrooms where there are menstrual products before.
And they're just there and
it's
you don't
not a
notice
fucking
them.
problem.
At work, there are menstrual products in the boys' bathrooms too, and I'd never have fucking cared once.
Exactly. Nobody.
I didn't even notice it until months in, and I was like, what are those? Oh.
Yeah, they're there for people who need them, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about?
And it's also crazy because I had seen this like line of attack kind of extended or focused on this one point that Tim Walz made schools put tampons in 5th grade boys' bathrooms. It's all public school bathrooms. It would be weirder to exclude young boys' bathrooms.
Yeah.
It would be weirder to explicitly carve out that exception than to just say all public schools.
Yeah.
And it's even weirder that you're hyper-focusing on 5th grade boys' bathrooms.
Also, like, why does it matter?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Not to mention that, cost-saving program for citizens. Because, again, we could talk about the tampon tax and how menstrual products represent a greater economic burden on women that have to, and so on and so on. It's just good policy to allow people to have access to the toiletries that they need. It's silly to even focus on this at all. It's a good policy.
Yeah, it's dumb.
Yeah,
dumb.
I for some reason I don't think this name is going to have any salience moving forward. It does make them seem weird though.
Absolutely,
when they say it,
and that's good. And Tim Walz is the weird guy.
Yeah,
he knows how to message around this.
The right has also tried to attack Tim Walz for having been arrested for a DUI in 1996. He was pulled over and arrested for driving 96 in a 55 zone and having a blood alcohol content level of 0.128.
That's crazy. Which is
admittedly nuts.
Crazy.
Yeah, that is admittedly nuts. The issue here politically, though, is that Tim Walz doesn't really hide from this moment in his history. Of course, it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But in 2018, he said, when he was running for governor the first time, he said, quote, "I learned my lesson and it made me a better person and a better leader. It was a serious mistake and it taught me valuable lessons about responsibility and consequences." And then a quote from Newsweek says, quote, "Walz cites the arrest as the catalyst for his decision to quit drinking, a commitment he has maintained for nearly 3 decades. Now he prefers Diet Mountain Dew."
You can't attack this guy. You can't attack this guy. He's already been there. He's already been through it. And he's making the correct statements in response to it. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, I did this thing and it was bad and it inspired me to become a better person. Here are the steps that I took to become better.
Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes.
Exactly. Oh,
everybody knows a fellow with a DUI. Especially if you're in the Midwest.
Especially if you're in a swing state.
That's the great American pastime, brother.
That's right.
I'm kidding. Don't drive drunk, of course. Be safe on the roads. But, it's a thing that happens to a lot of people.
It is crazy that drunk driving didn't get outlawed till like 88. That's wild.
Yeah, because that's communism. Seatbelts are also communism. That's one of my favorite videos. Have you seen that? It's good. It's good. Tim Walz.
The nanny state.
Exactly. Tim Walz has further been accused of having, quote, no stake in the country, meaning he shouldn't be VP. And when they say this
has been the most. I just gotta get. This has been the most insane line of attack that
I love
saw
it
this week. I was fucking tweaking, thinking that there are people out there that genuinely think like this.
Yeah, and when they say he has no stock or he has no he has no stake in the future, they're talking about like he doesn't own stocks.
Yeah,
he doesn't own any property
explicitly.
He hasn't held a private sector job. Like that's the kind of stuff they're talking about. And I think this take is fully encapsulated in a tweet I found from the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire. They said, quote, Tim Walz has been a leech his entire life. Public school teacher, politician, and veteran.
That's fucking insane. That
I gotta feel like calling teachers and veterans leeches is not a good move politically.
And it's like, it's not just the Libertarian Party. I had seen like other like people on like conservative or like Bitcoin Twitter talking about shit like, oh yeah, he's never owned a business. How could he know how to craft legislation around running a business? Like people have been calling Tim Walz out of touch because he's never held a private sector job. Are firemen out of touch? Are firemen leeches? Like what are we talking about here?
Yeah, it's not like owning a private sector job is some fucking rite of passage to understand the economy.
Exactly.
Like I know there's plenty of small business owners that have no idea what they're talking about.
And it's like Tim Walz is out of touch for not owning stocks. I don't know. Like, what do you mean? Most Americans don't own stocks. Isn't it, 90% of the market is owned by the top 10% of income earners?
Yeah.
That is the in-touch position to not own stocks.
The vast majority of Americans, of like, middle-income Americans that do own stocks are purely from retirement funds.
It's explicitly the contributions you and your employer make to your 401k.
Exactly.
They are not going out and watching the market until they're about retirement age, and they're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't retire now. They're not going out, oh, should I buy NVIDIA while it's low? That's not the average American experience. You're not going to walk into a Midwest bar and hear people talking about that.
Exactly. Well, and I think it's still like 40% of the country that literally doesn't own any stock.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say that they have no stake in the future of the country. You have stake in the future of the country merely by living here.
Yes.
By being a citizen here. I would even say people abroad have a stake in the country because we are the global hegemon.
Exactly. And Tim Walz has kids.
Yeah.
His kids have stake in the country.
Yeah, he's a father.
He wants to make the country a better place for his children. I saw another tweet earlier that was like, Tim Walz has never owned property. You want a homeless man to be VP? What are we talking about? Most Americans right now also don't own property. I'm
a renter, baby.
They don't own the house. I rent, and my rent is going to go up in like 3 months again. Like, he represents me.
Exactly. And I think he did have a house at one point, but he sold it because he became the governor and he lived in the governor's mansion.
Exactly. So it's like he'll just get a house after this, but he's a leech for that.
Yeah, and he'll live in the Naval Observatory or whatever the fucking vice president lives when he wins.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I genuinely can't wrap the head around some people think like that. Like, the mind of the median voter is a place I never want to go.
Yeah, it's really bad. I think Tim Walz also already addressed the stock thing a while ago when he said that he feels like there's a conflict of interest between running for office and owning stocks.
Oh my God, this guy is perfect. Like,
I don't quote me on that, but I think he said something along those lines when somebody asked him about it. It's like who cares if he doesn't own stocks? I think it's better.
And it's like these are the attacks they're launching against him. This is what they're going on their shows and talking about to their audience. Like I don't understand who that's resonating with. Yeah. Again, most Americans don't own stocks.
Yeah,
it is the in-touch,
aside from retirement funds.
Exactly, it is the in-touch position to not think about stocks all the time, not think about your fucking portfolio and how diversified it is.
Yeah, well, especially if you're going to be a politician or run for the second highest office in the land.
Yeah.
I think it's great that you don't own stocks.
And calling him a leech for being a teacher. Teachers notoriously, one, just not leeches, and two, massively underpaid. More in touch, very lower middle class income.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about, man?
He served the country.
Yes.
Like I'm not big on like American. I'm against American exceptionalism and talking about the military in this fanciful, lionizing way. But for Republicans, he served the country. How are you going to call him a leech?
That's like a huge part of their rhetoric is, oh, Democrats don't like veterans. Oh, whatever. Yeah. They don't treat their veterans with respect. Neither do you, brother. Oh my god.
Cutting the VA every year.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous. Moving on to another one that really boggled my mind. The right wing trying to attack Tim Walz has repeatedly brought up the Black Lives Matter protests again from 2020. Of course, BLM protests kicked off in 2020 because of George Floyd's murder in Minneapolis, Minnesota, while Tim Walz was governor, and they're trying to pin all this chaos, all the chaos and disorder of that year onto Tim Walz. We've really returned to form with the Minneapolis was burned to the ground and no longer exists.
Yeah, crazy.
Discourse.
And it's nuts because they have 3 pictures of the police precinct burning down
Yep.
that look like the apocalypse, but that's it.
Yep.
It's the only thing that actually burnt down.
Even though the people arrested in relation to that precinct burning down were a part of some far-right extremist group that were
provably,
agitating.
right?
Yeah. At least a few of them were.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy story crazy aspect of the story that kind of gets swept on the rug. And it's just with this whole line of attack, I think they think this is their best one, their biggest one, because it's what I hear the big commentators talking about. But I just don't think it's going to work.
Yeah.
This shit didn't work in 2020 when it was happening. Mm-hmm. There was not a red wave in 2020 when actual protests and riots were happening. And Tim Walz was reelected.
Yeah. They like him.
In fucking Minneapolis, where the precinct burned, in the city that burned completely to the ground,
Yeah.
he rose from the ash and was reelected in 2020.
Minneapolis was burned to the ground and salt was poured where trees once stood so they could never grow again.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
And he was still reelected. I don't know how people in 2024, when we're 4 years removed from the issue, are going to give a single shit.
Yeah. That also famously the year that Donald Trump lost.
Exactly.
I don't know why they think that rhetoric's going to work.
It's silly.
It's silly, and it's just disorienting hearing, again, people like Ben Shapiro in that sweaty video he posted say that Minneapolis was literally burnt to the ground. What are we doing? It's a whole city. What are you talking about?
And oh my God, just the over-exaggeration of all the protests that happened after George Floyd's murder was something they just pinned their whole party on.
Yeah.
And it didn't work, and we're going back to it. Never interrupt your enemy in the midst of a mistake.
Of course.
I would expect something more. It's like Republican strategists and Democrat strategists switch jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the Democrats are finally just putting their head down and locking in.
It's a real job.
And the conservatives are barely treading above water right now.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't think the whole bringing Black Lives Matter back up is going to resonate with anybody. I don't even think the average Republican voter cares about that anymore.
No. Absolutely not.
They're on to wholly different things.
I think the average Republican voter barely cared about it even when it was going on because it notably did not happen in the places they live.
Yep.
The average Republican voter was entirely insulated from every bit of actual protests that happened during 2020. They were just told to be upset about it. And it's easier to be told to be upset about something and actually get upset about it when it's happening and you're watching it happen live on TV because it's not happening in your hometown, in your small town of 2,000 people. I think it's much harder to, those people will still agree, but it's much harder to convince the moderate, the swing voter, the median voter 4 years removed. It's just, I just don't believe that that's going to work.
Especially because Donald Trump has audio, an audio recording of him praising Tim Walz's response to the Black Lives Matter protest.
Yeah.
Because I think after a few days, Tim Walz called in the National Guard. And say what you will about Tim Walz's response, I don't think the National Guard should have been called in,
No.
you know what I'm saying? But there's the leader of the Republican Party, the candidate for president, saying that he had no problem with how Tim Walz responded to it.
Crazy.
And now they're trying to say that Tim Walz is responsible for Minneapolis no longer being on the map.
Yeah, it's not on the map, guys. It's the Twin Cities are just the city now.
Yeah,
that's it.
This one is just feels like it doesn't even deserve to be mentioned. But there were also rampant claims of Tim Walz protecting pedophiles, which is not true. During his time of governor, they updated the definitions around protected classes in the Minnesota legal code, and they were updating the legal protections for the LGBTQ. And the old definition had a description of being gay, different gender identities and stuff like that, but it was very old and archaic and needed to be replaced. And at the end, it had a line that said, but this does not extend to protections for adults that are attracted to minors or something like that.
Good, insane.
They updated the definition and took that line out because the new definition didn't need that clarification.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessary. And then right-wingers said that they protected pedophiles by doing this, even while in Minnesota, it's still very much illegal to try to, be with minors.
Exactly.
It's just absurd.
Ever came through and said that this was chill. No. They just updated some definitions that you never were going to look at if you weren't told to be mad about this thing that you're lying about in general. But silly.
You don't need to include a line that is like saying like, oh, you can't be a pedophile when you're talking about protected classes.
It's quite literally the I condemn Hamas thing.
Yeah.
You don't need to constantly, well, you all do, dear listener, but you legitimately don't need to constantly say, but I also condemn Hamas after every single criticism of any act that Israel does. It's, oh my God.
And there's no legal scholar, no respectable legal scholar that will look at the Minnesota protected classes clauses and say like, oh yeah, pedophiles are good now. Clearly not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Clearly not.
Oh my God. And just like, speaking of legal scholars and speaking of Tim Walz being out of touch, he is the first person in like many, many, many years on the Democratic ticket to not have been a lawyer.
Yeah.
Most in touch VP pick, literally in forever.
I don't think he didn't go to an Ivy League either, did he?
No.
And Kamala Harris went to Howard. Howard's
no, it's an HBCU.
Okay,
it's not an Ivy League.
Yeah, so neither of them did. That's kind of good.
Did Tim Walz even go to college?
I don't know.
Or did he give his GI Bill to like his kids or something like that? Because if he went and did 24 years in the National Guard, you can become a high school. I think you can be a high school teacher without a degree. Actually, no, you probably can't.
Well, older time, whatever. Doesn't matter.
Either way, most in touch VP picking ever. Like, oh my gosh,
it's good. It's good. We also got a response to the couch joke.
We did.
Republicans have taken to saying, we all remember the couch joke, of course.
We do.
The allegations, or not even an allegation, it was just a shit post on Twitter that went super viral, that J.D. Vance fucked the couch, and he admitted to it in Hillbilly Elegy, the book that he wrote. And we got a response to that joke from the right, accusing Tim Walz of drinking horse cum. Obviously, this didn't happen.
Yeah.
And it honestly, I don't know if you all will know what I'm talking about here, but it's like when you're doing like friendly jabs in the group chat or with a group of friends, and then one dude just takes it way too far.
Yeah.
And he's obviously doing too much. That's kind of how it feels.
Exactly. And it's like the most like manufactured, manufactured thing I have ever seen before. It is strictly the like conservative meme accounts and their orbiters and reply guys that are posting about this. It not a natural uprise at all. You cannot force a meme. You can't. It's giving Hawk Tua. Yeah,
it really is. And like the couch thing with JD Vance was wholly organic.
Yeah,
people just thought it was funny, and it says something that everybody was like, wait, did he actually do that?
Exactly.
Because I was like, wait, is that real?
I thought it was real too. It's somewhat believable. I had seen like a variety of different posts like pertaining. I was like, oh yeah, in Hillbilly Elegy, JD Vance described how to take 2 sponges and put a glove in it. I don't know if that's real. I imagine it's not, and it's just a shit post in that vein, but it's still funny and says something that I was like, wait a second.
It's just like, on its face, this thing is ridiculous. Maybe in a vacuum this would be funny, because it's like, it's a funny set of words.
Exactly. It sounds funny. Or like maybe if they said like, oh, well, when Tim Walz was in the National Guard, he did the sponge with the glove thing. Yeah, that's more believable.
Yeah, but this is just, it's like forced in context. It's like, okay, well, you don't have anything better than this.
Exactly. How are you going to throw a light jab about drinking horse cum on like a rally stage like you can about get off the couch? Like come on now, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he'll say Tim Walz should get off his high horse.
That'd be kind of sick, actually.
That's probably better than whatever JD Vance is going to cook up, if I'm being honest, though.
But guys, do you know having a Mountain Dew is racist now? The Diet Mountain Dew line, that's probably why Harris picked him.
To end off the Tim Walz attack speedrun here, I want to end with my favorite response to Tim Walz's pick by far.
Okay.
So in response to Tim Walz making the joke about J.D. Vance and the couch thing at his announcement rally, we got this absolute banger on Twitter that I just feel like I have to read off.
We have to.
It says, if Walz was running against Obama, he totally would do a birth certificate joke. At no time in living memory has there been any such thing as going lower than Democrats are willing to go. It's not possible. The birth certificate thing was what you guys did.
Yeah, you guys came up with that. You guys were the one that pushed that. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Is this admitting that like Republicans went too far with that? Or like what is this even saying?
And it's like this rhetoric works for Lincoln Project guys, and that's it. Like the Lincoln Project guys are the only people that think that Republicans were ever like modest, like genuinely modest. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like again, just another banger pot kettle moment.
Yeah, and it's like if Tim Walz was running against Obama, he would have done what we did to Obama.
But it wouldn't have been cool because he's doing it, not us.
Yeah, but like, is it? I don't know. Is it an admission that they realized what they did was racist, or is it like what are they trying? What point is being made?
But it's also like you can't say that while Trump is also getting on stage and saying that Kamala Harris isn't black.
Yeah.
Like you can't do this because he's kind of running the race like 2008 Republicans against Obama. Like they are just being racist.
Not to mention that, of course, the birth certificate thing was just a series of lies.
Yes.
Racially motivated lies about Barack Obama. The couch thing is Tim Walz acknowledging in a very online joke, but not actually stating like, oh yeah, J.D. Vance fucked the couch, right?
Yeah,
he's just saying if he gets off the couch, you see what I did there.
It's just in passing, very funny, like a very subtle jab for the people who are chronically online and saw the joke. Nobody who's sitting at home and watching CNN and doesn't spend copious amounts of time on Twitter is going to understand that he's alluding to J.D. Vance possibly maybe fucking a couch.
And that's the point
exactly.
of the joke.
And oh my gosh, man, I can't stand conservative pearl clutching.
Yeah, the couch thing, again, is just a shitpost that Tim Walz acknowledged. It is not months-long conspiracy theories about how Tim Walz is not an American citizen.
And it's
or about
also
how J.D.
like,
Vance is not an American citizen.
If the, not to be a roles reverse guy,
yeah,
but if the roles were reversed, Trump would be explicitly saying, like he routinely does, every single lie that like Breitbart and New York Post end up pushing through the airwaves.
Yeah.
Like any lie that comes out about Kamala Harris or Tim Walz, he would be on there just talking about it at his rallies.
Yeah.
You can't do that. The pot kettle.
They said Ilhan Omar fucked her brother.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
To get into the country.
That was like 2 years ago, too.
What are we talking about? Like, oh yeah, Democrats have really lost their decency. Be so fucking for real, dog. What are we talking about? Oh my God. Anyway,
wow.
Overall, I don't think they have very many salient attacks against Tim Walz. Before we move on to talking about Donald Trump, I want to stay on Democrats for just a moment and mention that Kamala Harris did have a very bad moment at a rally recently.
Yes.
Overall, things have been going pretty well for her. Crowd sizes have been good. The imagery has looked good, looking very presidential, I guess I'll say. But there was a moment, I think, at the Detroit rally recently,
Detroit,
where she had, I think she met with the organizers of the uncommitted vote before the rally, and they talked about the potential of an arms embargo policy for the Harris campaign. Nothing official has been announced yet, but then right after that, she went to speak at a rally where she was protested by pro-Palestine protesters. And in that rally, she said something along the lines of, yeah, keep doing that if you want Donald Trump to get elected. And if you don't, then I'm speaking or something
there were protesters who maybe weren't even associated with the uncommitted people. I had seen a lot of liberals on Twitter saying, wow, she really just met with them and they're still protesting her. One, that would be fine. Like, that's still fine. You want to make your demands public.
Especially if you didn't get what you wanted. Yeah.
Yeah. And two, there is no reason to believe that the protesters were necessarily a part of the group that actually met with them. They could just be independent people, constituents who are concerned, especially when you're in Detroit right by Dearborn.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, so that was a bit silly from liberals. But yeah, the overall moment was bad. I believe the protesters were chanting something like, something you can't hide from genocide or something like that. And Kamala Harris was like, if you want Trump to win, just say that. But for now, I'm speaking.
Yeah. And then it was a death stare, and the crowd was like very excited. The
crowd went wild, which was crazy because it's not
the condescending liberal is not what you want to be.
No, absolutely. That is you absolutely want to avoid that at all costs. Yeah. And I was genuinely surprised that she didn't plan for this, and she didn't plan to have like some like quippy statement or some like platitude that she could say to them, because like. Every event like this has been, I don't want to say heckled, but like protested loudly by pro-Palestinian protesters, as they should.
Yeah.
Because that's the place to kind of voice these things. I don't know why she didn't prepare anything to like counter it.
And now, to be fair, she was in the middle of like a diatribe against Donald Trump, and so I can understand why she would jump to like, oh, I'm talking about Donald Trump and so on. But yeah, it's a bad look to say, oh, you want Trump to get elected? Keep going then.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm speaking, and then death glare as the crowd goes crazy.
Especially because like that's the most annoying line of like about the whole thing is like, oh, then go vote for Trump. Like, no, it's not that. It's not that voters who are concerned about. It's not that even like one issue voters on Gaza are going to go out and vote for Trump instead of you. It's that they're just not going to vote.
Yeah.
And you need those votes.
Yeah, and again, to her credit, she had another campaign appearance, I think in a different state, where she had a much better response when people came and protested. Yeah. She basically said, like, I want to fight for a ceasefire. We're going to get it done, help me get elected, that sort of thing, which is far better and what she should have just done in Michigan, basically say, like, I hear you, I see you, I also want this conflict to end type shit.
Yeah.
That would have been so much better than what she did say. And now, like we said at the beginning, she's in a tough spot because she, as the sitting vice president, there's no reality where she can, like, commit to anything Joe Biden hasn't committed to yet. Otherwise, that makes the White House look bad, and it makes her look like she's openly disagreeing with Joe Biden's policies, which she really can't do as the vice president. No. But at the same time, we need her, and I think she wants to offer a better message on Gaza than Biden has been offering. So it's a weird needle that she's got a thread here, but ultimately, in moments like this, yeah, you got to deal with that better. It was a really bad look, but I don't know if it's representative of how she's going to govern. We'll have to just wait and see. We're getting policies this week. Maybe we'll get some news on what she wants with Israel and Gaza.
Oh my gosh, she came out like such a prime we'll get into it in like 10 minutes. With all that happened in Gaza this week, such a prime opportunity to come out just with a straight arms embargo on the table.
Yeah.
Oh my God, wouldn't that be phenomenal?
Yeah. Maybe it'll happen. She's shown that, at least it seems like she'll be better than Joe Biden on Israel and Gaza. And there were some people that were like, this happens every time a Democrat is protested by Palestine folks. People always say, like, oh, why don't you go protest Republicans?
Oh, corny.
And to an extent, like, yeah, sure, protest every politician or would-be politician. But at the same time, it's like, well, Republicans, you're not going to persuade them on the issue.
Exactly.
Like, it's Democrats that are going to be persuaded on the issue.
Especially when I think it's like somewhere between 50 and 70% of Democrats are anti what Israel is doing in Gaza right now. Like, the Democratic constituency doesn't fuck with what's going on. So let's leverage that to actually lobby Democratic politicians rather than just speaking into the void.
Yeah, and I mean, I would be fine if people went and protested like at a Donald Trump rally or something like that. Yeah. Especially because he would say something crazy in response.
Exactly, just to like get the message out and show people that they're awful.
But I don't think they have some obligation to do so because Donald Trump is not going to be pushed to the left on this issue. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to happen.
Especially because right now is literally the like perfect opportunity to force her left, even if she doesn't want to go left, to force her left. Yeah. And I'm still not entirely cynical about it. The moment's bad. Believe me, I dislike how she responded to it. However, I am cautiously optimistic that she will at least do something better.
Yeah.
Do something better. She's already shown willingness to meet with the organizers of Uncommitted to talk about an arms embargo. Joe Biden hasn't done any of that. There's just there's more leverage on her now. I just maybe she was having a bad day. I don't know, but
yeah, we'll see what happens there. And lastly, as we said, DNC starting next week. It'll take place over the course of several days. I don't know if anything exciting is going to come out of this, but we're getting very close to Kamala Harris being the official nominee.
Yes,
that'll be happening later next week.
This episode of Head in the Office is brought to you by Ground News.
Media literacy is a key component of our podcast here, but spotting the biases in news and reporting, especially in our nonstop media landscape, can be hard. Thankfully, the folks over at Ground News are working to make this a lot easier.
Ground News is an app and a website that collects news from all around the world and puts it in one place so you can compare coverage, uncover political biases, and learn who is funding each publication.
Ground News has a lot of cool features, such as the bias distribution, which shows you the political leanings of the sources reporting on each story, and the blind spot tab, which highlights stories that are being missed by either the left or the right. Ground News will even tell you your own news bias based on the articles you've read on their site.
If you're interested in Ground News, you can go to check.groundnews/headintheoffice for 15% off. The link is also in the description, and we would suggest taking a look at their Vantage plan to unlock all the fancy features we've referenced before. And subscribing to Ground News also helps out the show, which we know you all want to do.
Very important. Special thanks to Ground News for sponsoring this podcast, and back to the episode. But I think it's time to talk about some Trump news.
Absolutely.
Because we got some important hiddo news within this Trump news. So before we move on to geopolitics, I want to make a quick pit stop at Donald Trump because, one, bro has been struggling, and two, debates are on the calendar again.
They are.
And that's big.
I'm geeked.
And that's big. First, Trump held a surprise press conference at Mar-a-Lago last week. He rambled for about an hour or so, but as a part of that press conference, he announced that he will be attending the September 10th debate with ABC.
He got bullied into doing it.
That's a Tuesday night, folks. Mark your calendar,
That's
September 10th.
Perfect. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, it's looking real good. He also offered a September 4th Fox News debate to Kamala Harris, which I don't think she's going to do, nor do I think she should do it.
No.
Because I don't think there's any good outcome.
Yeah.
For being bullied by Sean Hannity and Donald Trump at the same time.
And it's like, you've got the ABC debate. He committed the ABC debate. She controlled the narrative on that. They were going back and forth like this whole week about like, oh, Donald Trump's backing out of the debate. He doesn't want to talk to me. Oh, Kamala Harris will refuse to talk to me. And Trump bent the knee.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what is going on?
Yeah, and I think Trump also put on the table an NBC debate on the 24th of September. I don't know if that's going to happen. And there was also some word of a vice presidential debate, which I assume is going to happen at some point. Tim Walz and J.D. Vance. Again, no date on the VP one yet, but mark your calendar, September 10. Live stream details will be coming in the next few weeks because that's huge.
Because we'll be live. We'll be live. I'd say we'll be live an hour before the event. Like, we'll be making a bingo card. It's going to go crazy. Oh my gosh.
I'm very excited for it. The real debate. We had the debate pre-show, which was Joe Biden, and this is the real debate.
Yeah, that was the pregame. That was the prep, getting ready for it. And now we're firmly in election season.
And this is just in a couple of weeks' time. It's in a month's time because it's the 11th today.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's going to come up quick. That's going to come up real quick.
Yeah, that's nuts.
And I was thinking about it. I was like, damn, they're going to stuff 3 debates into this time period. This is just regular debate season right now.
That's true.
For a regular presidential election.
Yeah, usually it's like what, September? Or like end
September
of August,
October,
like September, October to get the 3 in, and then there's a VP debate shoehorned somewhere into there.
Yeah. This is like the normal timeline is like usually like one in October, maybe a VP debate in October, and then September is the first one usually. So it's like we're on track, and whoever planned that June debate again is a fucking political genius, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, the most real job in the Democratic Party right there, whatever strategist position that guy's in. Whew.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to those, and stay tuned. Additionally, during this press conference, Trump had a number of flailing moments. I want to reiterate, I don't know if I said this already, this press conference was a surprise.
Yeah, he just did it.
Yeah, I don't know if he's like getting uncomfortable with how Kamala Harris is pulling ahead or if he's malding or whatever it is. But out of nowhere, he announced there was a press conference last week. I thought maybe he would say he's dropping out, but that was too hopeful. And then it was just him rambling for over an hour. He, again, was questioning or lying about Kamala Harris's race. He explained her recent success by saying, quote, this is a quote,
okay,
"She's a woman. She represents certain groups of people." So that's fun. He also had a bunch of other crazy moments, but pretty low energy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I know he also, there was another point in the not debate, in the news conference where he said something like, yeah, I'm not doing well with black women, but black men, I got them maybe, right?
Yeah, he was just doing like punditry.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I do have one moment I wanted to listen to. It's about a minute and a half long. He rambles a little bit here, so bear with me, but he's talking specifically about January 6th. And to put it lightly, I think he might be trying to rewrite history a little bit.
Really?
If you can believe that.
Yeah, no. Trump?
Yeah, Trump rewrite, specifically J6, perish the thought.
No.
But I think we should take a listen. You'll get an idea for how low energy he was, and he does say some just crazy shit in this one. So let me make sure the audio is good, and we'll take a listen.
If you look at January 6th, which a lot of people aren't talking about very much, I think those people were treated very harshly. When you compare them to other things that took place in this country where a lot of people were killed, nobody was killed on January 6th. But I think that the people of January 6th were treated very unfairly. And they were there to complain, not through me, they were there to complain about an election. And, it's very interesting. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I said peacefully and patriotically, which nobody wants to say, but I said peacefully and patriotically. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken to, and you've seen, Maggie, I was at the mall, I was at the Washington Monument, I was at the whole thing. I had crowds, I don't know who's ever had a bigger crowd than I have, but I had it many times. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken before was that day, and I'll tell you, it's very hard to find a picture of that crowd. You see the picture of a small number of people relatively going to the Capitol, but you never see the picture of the crowd. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken. I've spoken to the biggest crowds. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me.
On January 6th.
If you look at Martin Luther King, when he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything, same number of people. If not, we had more.
So he says number one, nobody died on January 6th. Not
False.
true.
False.
Simply not true. And then he said my speech on January 6th was bigger than the March on Washington.
Oh my God! What a banger! And like overall, he's very much lost his like affect.
Yeah,
he's lost the sauce. But wow.
Yeah,
what a fucking statement.
Yeah, it's low energy, and he's just lying. He's very insecure about those crowd sizes. He's not happy that Kamala Harris is pulling in big crowds.
Absolutely. And he's been tweeting about that on like Truth Social, hasn't he? Mm-hmm. He's been like, no, the media never wants to talk about how big my crowds are. They always want to talk about Kamala Harris's crowds. Nobody wants to talk about my crowds. What's going on?
Yeah. I saw a breakdown on TikTok that Trump has like not been paying the venues that he goes to.
Hell yeah.
Like he even has outstanding bills from like 2020.
I was going to say, I think this was a scandal back in the last campaign he did.
Yeah.
He just like he doesn't pay his lawyers. Mm-hmm. He doesn't pay his venues. He doesn't pay anything.
I almost got to respect it.
I really do.
Yeah. And it's like, Trump will do rallies and he'll say he got 50,000 people. And it's like, that's not more than 3,000.
Exactly. No, especially because I think he was comparing one of the things he was talking about when he was talking about crowd size was I think him and Kamala spoke at the same venue in Atlanta, and she genuinely filled it out. But I think you look at videos of his, it's just empty seats, just all around. Nobody fucks with this guy anymore.
Well, and that's brother, it's Atlanta,
and it's like
they don't fuck with you in Atlanta.
It's like this is your third campaign. He's maxed out support.
Oh yeah,
and that's why it is also so important that everyone has their mind made up about him. It is just whether or not they want to actually get out after a long day of work and go vote for Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. That's why she has to do everything that she can to galvanize people to vote and not actively patronize them against it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One last piece of news on elections before we move on to Gaza. I did see, and this is big, RFK Jr. is now on the Texas ballot for November. Which, we are anti-voting third party. Unless you're a Republican, then go crazy.
Yeah, then you actually have a really good chance at getting the policies that you want.
You need to punish the Republican Party for choosing Donald Trump again.
Yeah. That's not the guy who represents you. RFK is far more aligned with you. You should vote for that guy. He could win. He literally could. He's on the ballot.
Yeah, if you vote for Trump, you're throwing your vote away.
Basically.
But yeah, RFK is on the ballot, and, I'm not going to say it's going to happen. But if RFK pulls enough votes away from Trump in Texas, a state that should already be blue, but just based on the actual people that are registered to vote there, we could get blue Texas this year. And that would trigger, I think, a literal civil war, probably.
Yeah,
I don't think we'd make it out of that one.
I don't either. But wouldn't that be a sight to see?
It would be over at that point. It doesn't even matter.
If Texas genuinely turned blue, there would be genuine violence at precincts.
Yes.
Conservatives in Texas would pull up en masse to harass poll workers. There's no way.
I don't think Greg Abbott will let that slide, especially because voter suppression in Texas is very bad.
Yes.
But if enough people, as we always say, it's a two-party system. If enough people defect from one party to vote for third parties, it makes the other side a lot more. It makes it easier for the other side to win. If enough people in Texas go to Trump when the margin was only 5% last time around, which is slim for Texas.
Or go to RFK.
Oh yeah, if enough people go to RFK and abandon Trump, it makes it a lot easier for Kamala Harris to win. That's especially crazy. Considering Joe Biden got closer in Texas than any Democrat in modern history.
And I was gonna say Texas was blue for a while on that election map when they were counting votes for a little bit. It was people were like, maybe this could happen. Obviously, it didn't, as we know, but
it probably won't. Again, 10% chance, probably not going to happen. But if it did, Civil War II.
Civil War,
because they wouldn't let us get away with that one.
No, absolutely not. That'd be a bit crazy.
Yeah,
that'd be a bit crazy.
You know what? One of my favorite activities is
what?
Reading.
Oh, I love reading. I love literature.
And one of my favorite things to read are the reviews we get on Apple Podcasts.
Always.
Not only do I love to read them, but it's a really great way to support the show. If you want to help us out, go and leave a 5-star review on Apple. As always, we read them here on the show. And if you want to make me happy, if you want to become my non-parasocial friend,
that's right.
One step on the 1,000 steps that it takes to get there is to leave a 5-star review on Apple. We'd really appreciate it.
Just remember, my friendship, it's for sale. Mm-hmm. And if you want to become one of my friends, you can go to the Patreon, or completely for free, you can leave a review on Apple. And even if you don't want to become my friend, don't you want to see another human smile?
Exactly. So consider leaving a review on Apple. It really helps out the show. It's a free way to do it. And you'll be one step closer to being a real friend of ours.
Exactly. Now with that, back to the episode. So now, once again, just making good on our #1 geopolitical podcast title.
Got to.
Really, or subtitle, if you will, moniker. We got to head over to the other side of the world and talk about what's happening in Gaza this week, because it was surprise, pretty bad.
Always bad, never good.
Yeah, actually, you know what I mean? So days ago, on, I believe, Friday, this is recorded on Sunday, Israel launched a kind of brand new offensive into the South Gaza city of Khan Yunis. I really hope that I'm saying that right. Notably, the eastern block of this city was designated as a humanitarian zone. But we'll get into that later. And an evacuation order was issued. I say kind of because they've already been attacking here. Notably, 2 weeks ago, refugees had finally returned to the city after a separate week-long offensive in July. And I believe they've launched just 3 massive attacks on the city where they've told people to come and go and come and go and come and go and come and go.
Naturally, yeah.
Unfortunately, standard fare for the IDF and wherever they want to attack.
And, small landmass, Gaza.
Yeah, what is it, like 25 by 7 miles or something like that?
Very small.
Is the entire just Gaza Strip? Incredibly dense area, 2.3 million people. Again, most of them, like 1.9 million, I think I've seen some estimates say, have just been radically displaced from their homes.
Insane.
Have just no homes to return to. They're quite literally living in tent cities.
Yeah.
It's asinine. It's gross.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Pretty uncontroversially uncontroversially in some circles, a humanitarian crisis.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's blowing my mind. And this is all going on while Yahya Sinwar was promoted to Hamas leader. And he is taking the position of the guy that was killed, I think, on last episode that we talked about.
Oh, the negotiator.
The negotiator. Yeah. So this is all going on while he is kind of taking over as that lead Hamas role, taking over everything. Israel thinks that he's hiding in the city of Khan Yunis, and they're like, well, we got to go in now. So everybody get out of your homes.
Oh, great.
So that's a pretty good thing. That's a great thing that's been going on in Gaza over there. He's taking over negotiations. Antony Blinken and mediators are trying to sort of tell everybody, like, well, we want to get negotiations back on the table. I don't know how that's going to happen when Israel has vowed to kill the guy that they want to negotiate with, but they vowed to kill Sinwar. They vowed to kill the new guy. If someone's vowing to kill me, and you expect me to go and negotiate with them, I don't think I'm going to want to do it. Yeah. He has said he is recommitted to wanting to negotiate for a ceasefire, kind of because they have to. The entire region's in a destitute position.
You're talking about Netanyahu?
No, I'm talking about Sinwar.
Okay, yeah.
He wants to negotiate.
Yeah.
Who knows, again, how good faith Hamas is being in this situation. But I think uncontroversially we can say that Israel is not.
Yeah, and it seems unreasonable to me to kill the negotiator and then say, like, no, yeah, we can still negotiate. I promise I'm acting in good faith.
Yeah, exactly, guys. This is fine.
Again, as we said last time around, or as we've been saying for a long time at this point, you can't say, okay, yeah, the war will stop as soon as we kill everybody we're talking to right now.
Exactly.
Like, that's not, you can't do that. That's not how it works.
Yeah, we're negotiating with Hamas, but we're not going to stop the actual war until we kill all of you.
Exactly, yeah.
So, this just in, left Twitter is being sent in to negotiate on behalf of Hamas, guys.
Antony Blinken said I got to go to Cairo.
Antony Blinken gave me the order. I'm scared. I don't think I'm going to make it.
I can't go.
Guys, they're going to fucking kill me.
I have stuff. I got to do stuff here. I have a podcast to run.
I got to finish my BG3 run. I don't know how it ends yet, guys. I got to. But one of the, so they're launching this third time offensive in this city where the Eastern Bloc was determined a humanitarian safe zone. One of the areas that people from Khan Yunis would likely evacuate to and were explicitly told to evacuate to is a tent city just west of that city in Mawasi. I really hope I'm saying all this right, but white guy syndrome, you know what I mean? Midwestern Michigan. I got white guy syndrome. I can't. It's chronic.
I could be vice president.
It's terminal. Really, I can't get rid of it, right? And Israel, again, has designated this entire tent city, this area in Mawasi, as a humanitarian zone. Yet, as the AP highlights, Israel carried out a strike that killed 6 people, one of them being a journalist for what they say is, quote, the Hamas-run Al-Aqsa TV channel. I don't necessarily know if that implicates that journalist as being pro-Hamas or whatnot. Hamas is the government of the area.
Yeah.
Every state-run anything is Hamas-run, notably the
I was about to say
Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry.
AP puts the AP puts Hamas run in front of everything when they talk about Gaza.
So it's kind of hard to parse whether or not he was, I don't know, a fucking target, but I think I'm going to focus on the journalist part of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. When you put Hamas run in front of everything to, I guess, give yourself as an organization plausible deniability. But the AP in general has this problem of trying to appear as centrists, but in doing so, just adopt pro-bad things framing.
Yeah, and it doesn't help Israel's case that they have a track record of targeting and killing journalists in the region.
I think after October 7th, one of the first things they did was just blow up journalists' family homes.
Yes.
And it's like when the media is state-run, like I don't think you can really label all of these guys as Hamas just because they work for the Hamas-run thing. There's a Hamas military wing, and then there's a Hamas just government. I don't think all the doctors and analysts that work for the health ministry are Hamas. You know what I'm saying?
Not to mention, of course, as we have said and repeated multiple times, that just killing everybody even semi-related to Hamas as like a government entity is not a way that you can actually end the war and get a sustainable peace in the region.
Exactly.
It's not going to, well, one, like logistically, it's not going to happen. You're not going to get everybody. And two, in doing so, you will create conditions where, I don't know, Hamas 2.0 will rise out of the ground.
Exactly. And there's like this one fucking tweet that I saw. I think it was tweeted a while ago where it's like, if somebody came and killed my entire family just to like get one guy that was bad, I think I'm also going to want to start Hamas too, or like something
precisely,
like that. You know what I mean? Because it's like, you can't do that. And that's something we're going to kind of get into like right now. This killing of this journalist and 5 other people in a humanitarian safe zone is just yet another example in kind of a long list of instances where Israel has explicitly told people that they can go here and find safety and be kind of isolated from the collateral damage of their war with Hamas, yet not actually being able to find safety. You know what I mean? In fact, this particular humanitarian zone has been extra problematic. As the ABC News reports, that there have been, in July, 8 separate strikes within the safe zone, within the zone that you go to not be hit by shrapnel and whatnot, which were verified by video and also separately by Israel themselves, that have killed around 110 people. Again, I cannot say this enough. Within a humanitarian safe zone, they have murdered 110 people? What? I think the optics there are apparent. I think it speaks for itself. You know
there's
what
no
I mean?
way. There's no way you can argue that all 110 of those people were Hamas guys specifically.
Yeah,
especially because Israel's known for not being able to get the Hamas guys.
And when some of these strikes hit hospitals that were treating victims of other strikes, I don't think we can really say that we're doing a good thing here. You know what I mean? And their ratios haven't really proven to be anything special.
I am surprised there are still hospitals to hit, though.
I'm also surprised.
That's crazy.
Maybe it's like the other wing of the hospital that they're attempting to hit. You know what I mean? Because they've been really running their way through hospitals, universities, schools.
Maybe it's a pop-up hospital.
Maybe.
I guess I don't know.
Exactly. Maybe it was a makeshift hospital set up in a terror tunnel.
Either way, really bad. Israel sucks.
Bad. To understatement, right? And when Israel confirmed that they did do this on purpose and they did purposefully strike these humanitarian zones, they justified the strikes by saying, surprise, surprise, they were efforts to destroy Hamas militants, commanders, and infrastructure hidden within Palestinian neighborhoods.
Neighborhoods, good. Yeah, okay.
I know we publicly broadcasted that this area would be entirely safe, and I know we've also made claims that there are like Hamas terror tunnels running all throughout Gaza, but like there are terror tunnels under the safe area, so we gotta get it. And I think there's also something broadly to say about, in a war like this, just such an asymmetrical war where we are assaulting every bit of land within Gaza, just destroying everything, designating and we have to consider that we are not fighting like a military. We're not fighting guys in uniforms, right? We are fighting people who blend in with civilians. And Israel loves to point that out, but loves to not acknowledge that when they designate a safe zone, right? It's kind of, I don't want to say hypocritical, but maybe it's a little asinine to say like, oh yeah, all of you civilians go to this one place that's going to be safe, but Hamas, no, stay there. Stay in your areas. You know, of course, the Hamas fighters are going to go to the safe zone. That doesn't mean that you can go and kill the civilians that are genuinely sheltering from violence. We say it every week. You can't just shoot through the human shield, and then you can't justify shooting through the human shield by saying they used a human shield. They're the bad guys.
To me, there's only really two options here. It's either one, that they are dumb and incompetent by thinking that, like, oh, Hamas will just stay behind and all the civilians will move to this area that we've designated. Or two, much more sinister, I think, they're trying to group them all up together because they don't care.
It's like
if
malice.
They hit the civilians.
Yeah. Or maybe even more cynically, they're designating these zones because they know that people are going to go there to be safe.
Exactly.
And people in Hamas also want to be fucking safe. So it groups them all up so they can get them. Like, that could not be what's going on. But with the way that Israel's been acting throughout this entire conflict, I'd be remiss to not even suggest that they could be acting in that way.
110 people in a safe zone is crazy.
Exactly. Over the course of a month. And you're still calling it a safe zone. Like, brother, I don't think...
Safe from what?
Safe from what?
Yeah.
Say, if not safe from murder, I don't think we're safe from anything. It's not safe from famine. It's not safe from disease. You can't even go to the fucking hospital. Like, what are we talking about? In another horrific incident that happened this week, on Saturday, a day before we're recording, Israel struck a mosque that was within a school that was converted into a refugee camp during morning prayers.
Oh.
That killed 80 people and wounded 50.
Just strictly
this happened
evil.
Yesterday.
Strictly evil. Strictly evil.
And it gets even fucking worse because Israel comes out and they claimed that they were able to end the strike on the school that turned into a refugee camp in the mosque during morning prayers. Yep. They said they came out and they killed 19 Hamas fighters. However, that number is disputed by both Hamas and I think people who are witnesses on the ground. Hamas is saying that 2 of the Hamas fighters they claim to have killed have already been killed in previous attacks. And people on the ground are saying people that were claimed to be Hamas fighters were either civilians or anti-Hamas demonstrators. You know what I mean? I'm not going to comment on who is more to be believed, whether or not you should believe that Hamas is saying Israel lied or Israel is telling the truth. You know what I mean? Yeah. But what I will comment on is they're claiming at best, that they killed 19 Hamas fighters in a strike that killed 80 people and wounded 50.
Jesus.
The ratio is nowhere near acceptable there.
Yeah, they're just admitting, like, oh yeah, we killed 60 people that were praying this morning.
Yeah. If you have to shoot through 3 people to kill one bad guy, I don't think the cost benefit's on your side.
With the 3 people that are praying inside of a school, inside of a mosque that turned into a refugee camp.
Inside of a mosque, inside of a school that's now converted into a refugee camp. And there's also no school because why would there be school going on? No one can do anything. The school is also half destroyed already. Inside Gaza City, which is already surrounded by the IDF. This has been one of the deadliest attacks this whole conflict. Single attacks.
It's just not worth it. Like, it's not worth it to get the terrorist guys to kill 3 times the amount of civilians.
Like, imagine how many fucking terrorist guys you bred after that one event.
Well, exactly,
like, completely earnestly. Like, if I'm in a mosque, inside of a school, inside of a refugee camp, praying.
Yeah.
And I watch 80 people in front of me get slaughtered with a quarter, three quarters of them being unambiguously innocent, and a quarter of them, their innocence being ambiguous. I'm going to tweak.
Yes.
I'm going to just start fucking tweaking.
Exactly.
I'm not going to be receptive to any of that government's
Especially
arguments.
if I'm one of the many people in the Gaza Strip that were born after Hamas was elected during the only election that was held in 2005 or 2006.
Yeah.
I've had no control over Hamas as a government entity my entire life. For their existence inside of a mosque that has a school inside of it that was turned into a refugee camp, to then condemn 3 times the number of people to death, and maybe even my own family members to death. Like, of course, Hamas too. I'm doing Hamas too.
Like, oh my gosh, man! Again, the moral calculus just it doesn't work. It does not fucking work there.
And it's not
all.
even like a good military strategy.
No.
Like, if their goal is genuinely to restore peace in the region and get Hamas out because they truly, truly, truly believe that Hamas is at fault here, you don't do it by killing a bunch of innocent people.
No, you do diplomacy.
Yes.
Yeah, terrorism is born out of these conditions.
Yes.
We have known this for a while. America went through this entire saga where we were doing kind of this same thing, just on like a bigger scale.
For 20 years.
For 20 years. Yeah. And then we pulled out of it, realizing, maybe that didn't work. And we're just letting Israel,
in fact, as soon as we left Afghanistan, everything we did didn't matter.
Exactly.
Like, as soon as we left.
As soon as we left Afghanistan, the Taliban quite literally took over, and now they're a recognized governmental body.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot fight these things this way. You have to fight them with diplomacy.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Who would have fucking thought
Jesus
that's how
Christ,
you would get around these? You know what I mean? And switching focus just slightly from that Genuinely horrific event. Again, one of the most deadly this entire conflict. Single strikes going on.
We laugh at the absurdism of it, but it's like genuinely horrifying. Like it is incredibly tragic, as this entire conflict, quote unquote, the genocide has been. But it's just it's hard not to look at this and be like the comically evil.
Exactly.
Comically evil IDF.
Comically evil. And it's like, speaking to your point about how like so many citizens in Gaza were born after Hamas took power, which Bibi's government helped them do.
Yes.
Let's not forget Bibi's complacency and the rise of Hamas and how they became the governmental body there, the Gaza Health Ministry, the Gaza Run the TV station, the Gaza Run whatnot and whatever. What is it, 50% or 40% of Gaza's population is 15 or younger?
Yeah.
I guess 16 or younger now.
Isn't the median age like 18 or something like that? Yeah.
Most of the people who live there weren't even born when Hamas came up. Like, you can't fault them for that.
Yeah.
You literally cannot fault them for that. You can say that they were indoctrinated. You can even say maybe that some of them have been indoctrinated into a violent ideology or whatnot. That doesn't mean you can just kill civilians and people have nothing to do with it, carte blanche.
Yeah, well, and extremist indoctrination doesn't happen in a vacuum. There are material conditions that motivate people to join extremist groups. And imagine being an 18-year-old now that has grown up under a Hamas government that you had no control in electing, and then you see this much larger country that controls where you live and what you can do in the prison that you exist in. This much larger country is killing your family, killing innocent civilians, all in their quote-unquote just war because a terrorist attack happened. If you survive all of that at the end of the day after this conflict is finally finished, of course you're radicalized against Israel. Like, what do we expect?
It's like the natural response.
It's textbook radicalization. Yeah.
Again, the perfect conditions for it. And then on the other hand, you have Yahya Sinwar being elevated to the top political chief. You have negotiations that have stopped since they literally killed the guy they were negotiating.
You can't negotiate anymore.
You can't negotiate with him. You fucking killed the guy. They are vowing to kill the guy that is supposed to step in for these negotiations. And John Kirby is still coming out here like, we can.
It's so incredibly weak.
I don't really know.
It is so incredibly weak.
State Department's top line being, we don't want to upset this delicate process. I think Israel is upsetting this delicate process.
Yeah, not only that, but they also bombed Iran last week.
Exactly. Netanyahu or members of Netanyahu's cabinet have been making statements saying they are already in a multi-front war with Iran and its proxies. Yet we, members in our government, in America, in North America, other side of the globe, are saying, we actually can't talk about an arms embargo or give you any details on negotiations at all because it might upset the process.
Yeah.
I think killing the person you're negotiating with is going to upset the process even more. And further than that, negotiations are set to resume, I think, on the 15th in either Cairo or Qatar, the capital of Qatar. They're not going to happen if they're literally trying to find the guy who's supposed to show up there and kill him.
Yeah, and it's like we're about to be roped into a broader regional war in the Middle East by a dude from fucking Pennsylvania.
Dude, literally.
What are we doing?
God.
Netanyahu, who I think went to college in Philadelphia, is about to rope us into a regional war in the Middle East after we just got out of regional wars in the Middle East when Biden pulled out of Afghanistan.
And that's why it's like...
It's so dumb.
To bring it back to America and American electoral politics, right? Like Kamala Harris has such a just prime opportunity to get in here and just arms embargo.
Yeah.
We will no longer sell you weapons because I don't know. I think the optics of what happened yesterday, bombing a mosque inside of a school that was turned into a refugee camp and killing 80 people, having 130 casualties, are pretty bad. And I think that it also coming out that within like 24 hours of that, I think before, we authorized a $3.5 billion arms deal with $250 million of that going so that Israel can have more precise bombs.
Oh, good.
And you know what? Maybe that is the difference between liberals and conservatives. Israel's been dumping dumb bombs on them, and everyone's been fine with that. Maybe they should be more precise. I don't fucking know. I'd rather there be no bombs.
Oh, yeah, no bombs seem like a better option.
I'd rather just there be no bombs. You know, so much money. We just gave them more.
It's especially like electorally, it doesn't make much sense to me to not be on the ceasefire arms embargo side.
Yeah.
Because after 20 years of the war on terror, after George W. Bush lying to the American population, and Obama continuing it, and Joe Biden being a part of that, and Donald Trump upping the drone war after Obama left, like after all of this conflict and so much money funneled overseas and so many American deaths, and not to mention the like million people that George Bush killed, people in the United States are tired of war. We don't want to be involved in it anymore. I think we never should have been good with it to begin with, but propaganda, people were lied to, Cold War and so on. Look, people in America are tired of war. I feel it is and I think this is borne out in polling data, it is the electorally popular position to say, we aren't going to fund war. We're pro-peace.
Especially when 50 to 70% of your party is pro-ceasefire.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to be Joe Biden. You don't need to be an old man on this issue. You don't need to be stubborn. You can come out and just arms embargo.
Yeah.
Arms embargo. We are separating ourselves from this. Israel, no, you cannot do that. We are imposing a ceasefire, or else you will never get U.S. aid again, or else fuck your Iron Dome. You know what I mean?
Israel cannot continue if the U.S. says you have to stop.
Exactly.
They can't do it.
Like the Iron Dome, that's ours.
Mm-hmm.
That's not theirs. That's ours.
Yeah.
We have so much leverage in this. Why let tens of thousands of people explicitly die, and upwards of 100,000 to hundreds of thousand people die implicitly from famine and starvation and disease 100%. And lack of access to hospitals and medical equipment? Just no need.
Yeah.
No need to do any of that. It's not popular.
It boggles my mind so much that like in the 80s, Ronald Reagan, of all people, got on the phone with whoever the leader was back then and was like, yeah, you got to stop. And they were like, all right, we're done. And now we can't even muster the strength to do that. It's like out in public, it's just unequivocal support. And behind closed doors, it seems to be light pushing.
And it's like, I don't know how much of this is like, I don't know the background politics, the backdoor, closed door politics of what's going on here. I don't know how much they don't want to kind of step on Joe Biden's toes, although I don't think it matters if you step on his toes. I forgot he was the president. Like, Joe Biden came out. I forgot he was the president. He made a statement about, oh, we should do court reform, Jack. And then I forgot he was the president again. Because to be fair, he's like nothing right now. Yeah, no bills are going to be passed. Nothing is going to be done from now until January, except maybe he'll pardon Hunter Biden.
Mm-hmm.
It's purely about Kamala. I don't know what delicate processes she could interrupt. At least more than Israel's interrupting by coming out and being pro-ceasefire.
It's just like, I don't know if we can expect Kamala. I don't think she's going to do this, but I don't think like politically she would be willing, or any person that's the current vice president would be willing to deviate that much from the sitting president's policy. Yeah. I think, like, it's my personal speculation that in her head, and probably to her advisors and the people that work with her, she wants to be at least a little bit more to the left than Joe Biden is on the issue of Israel and Gaza.
It's signaled like excellently with the Tim Walz pick. Like, I think she has successfully signaled that she is willing to move to the left on these things. But there's some motivation. There's something in the background, being the vice president, that is stopping her from saying it with her chest.
But maybe it's not really justified because, like, even let's say Kamala Harris came out tomorrow and, like, you know, pushed back against some of Biden's policies, not directly saying like I don't like what Biden's doing, but, you know, offering a more progressive perspective on the issue. What's Biden going to do?
Exactly.
Like his Department of State, John Kirby, would get out there and be like, oh, Kamala Harris, like, you know, we disagree with this.
And it's also like, what is John Kirby going to do? They can't, they also can't turn their back on Kamala in the midst of campaigning. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that this Democratic Party is stupid enough to completely sabotage her campaign because she's bucking with the president on one issue that she can successfully get away from.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe she's waiting until after the convention to say any of her more quote unquote radical positions so that she can just secure those delegates, secure that nomination. Although, I mean, it's pretty much secured.
Yeah. I don't even know if it's about that. I think like the Democrats, and I think Kamala Harris is worried about looking as though there is like a schism between her and Biden. I don't think they want it to look like there's conflict between the two as Joe Biden's out the door and as she is taking over the nomination. It's a difficult needle to thread, but some of the reason people don't like Joe Biden and didn't want Joe Biden is because some of his policies suck ass.
Exactly.
And if you distinguish yourself in that way, I think that's like electorally successful. It is a little complicated because he's still in the position right now.
And
but
you're
like
a part of that administration.
And she's the vice president. But if he wanted Kamala Harris to win, like genuinely wants her to win, or like, you know, Joe Biden's puppet masters, the people who parade the empty husk around the West Wing.
Jill Biden and Hunter Biden.
Yeah, if they want her to win, then I feel like let her come out and say shit about a ceasefire and just shut up about it.
Exactly, because it's like,
I don't know. It's complicated.
It's not unpopular.
Yeah.
It's not an unpopular position. I don't even know if you could say it's unpopular like nationally within the broad like electorate. I know conservatives won't fuck with it because they'll be told not to fuck with it, but like Democrats want this.
Yeah.
I don't know how else you could really square that circle.
Swing voters want this.
Exactly.
Importantly, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And like I think the tax dollars spent on Ukraine does genuinely work on some swing voters, although I think that that's a good thing. I think it's okay to fund the defense against a regime that wants to unjustly aggress upon you. I think that's fine. You know what I mean? If the Ukraine rhetoric can work on swing voters, I think if we framed this in a way that it's like, yeah, look, 3.5 billion of your hard-earned dollars just went to fund a genocide, maybe that could work. I don't know, though. I'm just a guy.
Also, like, imperialism bad always.
It's so true.
Hot take.
Exactly.
I don't like
consistent.
it. I don't like imperialism, and you can get mad at me in the comments for that.
I don't rock with it.
I don't.
Never once did I. But you know what I do rock with? Our patrons.
These beautiful people.
Beautiful people that get to listen on Sunday.
It's a good list.
Never behind on the news. You know what I mean? It's a great list, and I
excellent, wonderful.
Gotta start that list off with
terrific.
Caden Kraut, Lord Tal the Radiant, Chris the Postman, Christy Begg, Dylan B, Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Matty S.T., Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Caleb Joy, Rich Toro, Tari, Gavin Mayer Maldonado, Hunter W., Fergalaki, Max Vezquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Mooberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Big Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Guts, Yuk, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird, Teddy Crawfish, and Benny Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Nietzsche, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's Boyfriend, Dictator Jace, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarleson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Science, Aaron and his Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Tailored for Content, Corey Chambers, L.E.N., Devin Hatchard, Retro Mondo, Emma the Dude Slayer, Veronica, a.k.a. V, Raxon, Ass Smith, The Grotler, Flower Clown, Beetlebugs, Murder in a Trench Coat, Lonnie Rogers, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes, and Hope of Giants, a.k.a. Gon Aquana Don,
Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Cammy, Tylen Freeman, Steak Daddy, Tay-Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C., Kayla Lowe, Anna Volinik, KCC, Say Yes to Wes, August, Particular Pickman, Sir Capilot, Jeff Sines, Howard the Duck, Brendan is Egg, JR, Drew Batchilder, Froggy Gumdrop, Zen doing their best, Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, Sasha, MJ Sharp, Michaela Muncie, The Wallace 3000, Jared Finch, Tactical Snowflake, Son of Ander, Vanilla Bryce, Krish T, Kashan Lala, Amanda R, Hanky Panky, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Ashley White, Dick Cheney and 3-inch Heels, Lalo Valesco, Particulon, Memfrez, Gorgeous Girl Mukes, Lauren, Unchrasmatic Boar, Sasquatch, Rhonda Stiletto, Midwest Marxist, Joe the Mailman, Gary from West Michigan, Shawnee GG, Juniper Not Jupiter, Stacked Crabs, Patrick Simpson, I Crowley, Urban Peach, Lord of Forlorn, Holt Forsyth, Dialectic Dreamer, Kevin Kisaya, Schnoodle, Booty Snakes, Erica, Krusty Krab, Do Fairy, Chelceratops, Austin Lima, Lane Waltz, Azim Fidah Hussein, Brooklyn G, Noverk the Dastardly, and my mom. Thank you all so much for supporting the show on Patreon. Keep checking your mailbox if you haven't got your postcard yet.
Wonderful contributions to the Hiddo Grocery Fund.
Yes.
Let me tell you, in this,
this
important fucking Biden inflation in this goddamn economy right now, whew, it's hard to get 2 meals without spending $100.
It's really hard. I'm trying to buy my chicken breasts. I'm trying to get my spices. I'm trying to get my vegetables, and it's like I get maybe 3 pieces of broccoli in a frozen bag.
I'm saying if I want to eat on a budget, I'm chicken no spice and a 20-pound bag of rice I get from the Asian market.
Struggle dinner,
and that's still $50.
It's messed up. It's not fair.
What are we talking about, man? What are we talking about?
Look, if you want your name on this list, let us know. If you deserve to be on this list, let us know. If you want your name on the list, go to patreon.com/intheoffice.
Exactly.
It's very important.
Right there. And if you want, leave a 5-star review completely for free. It'd be pretty cool.
Need that. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Have a great week.